Alrighty, that was set up quick, so we're going to go ahead and jump into this. I'm Jared Hall, the CEO and founder of IntelliKid Systems. With me today is Karen, who's the director of our IntelliKid Systems Academy. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Jared.
Couple little things, just some housekeeping before. There will be a certificate available for everyone who stays for the duration of the webinar. And just here in the beginning, I'm going to talk a little bit about what IKS Academy is, as this is only our second webinar. Also a little bit about what IntelliKid Systems is, in case any of you have not heard of it before. So IntelliKid Systems is a lead management system for childcare. It's software that helps you manage your inquiries. My family was in childcare operations for almost 40 years. We ran one of the top 50 for-profit childcare centers until we were acquired by a large national chain in 2017. So a lot of what we've built into our software comes from real operational experience. We have these 5 pillars of lead management that kind of are the basis for how we think lead management should be done. Capture means that all of your leads should be coming in to a system. You shouldn't be relying on manual entry to make sure you have the information correct. You should be able to easily communicate with your leads and be able to show them what your program has to offer. You should be able to organize your leads according to where they are in the decision-making process, be able to take a look at that just in one glance. Engage is particularly my favorite, be able to get that relationship going before they even come in for the tour. And of course, analyze, to be able to see all of the performance statistics for how your center handles enrollment. Personally, I think we handle it pretty well. We've been running our software for quite a long time, been publicly available for the last 3 years. In that time, we've really helped quite a lot of centers just get a handle on how they handle enrollment, which is obviously a very hot topic as we face the challenges of rebuilding our programs. So that's enough about IntelliKid Systems. Let's focus on what we're really here for. So one of the things that was important to me as we started really connecting with a lot of childcare centers was that there was this really great thirst for information, for best practices, for discussions on some of the operational topics of running a center. And as we began to create these meaningful conversations, we identified that there was that thirst of knowledge. And we believe, from IntelliKid Systems' perspective, that our success is intrinsically related to the success of our clients, which is you guys. So we wanted to start this depository of knowledge for the whole industry to benefit from. As you guys know, these webinars are completely free. We have enough content planned out for 2 webinars a month, all the way, for years. So really what it is just trying to share some knowledge, and we're gonna really look forward to developing that. The Academy's mission is a commitment to providing tools and resources for you to achieve a level of excellency in every aspect of operating your childhood program. What we're really here is to make moonshots a reality. I like this idea of space and moon. I think it's some of the things that we've done in that sector is really kind of wholesome and an achievement of humanity. And one of the things about a moonshot is that you know where you want to get it, you know where you want to get to, but you don't know how to get there yet. And we're all about trying to make that process better. So we've come up with this idea of space. Each one of our webinars are going to touch one or more of these parts of your center. Our belief is that with these 5 parts and in managing these 5 parts, you'll have a complete picture of how your operations are going to. So obviously today we're talking quite a bit about staff management, but every webinar is going to touch at least one of these 5 points. Karen, go ahead.
Thanks, Jared. So for anybody who doesn't really know me, being that this is only our second webinar, I have worked in childcare for over 40 years. And so today I'm going to talk a lot about my personal experience. And I really just think that it's really beneficial to hear another person's story and their evolution in where they've gone. So I hope that doesn't offend anybody. I'm super excited to be able to do this, and so let's go ahead and get started. So how to train, hire, and retain your staff. So the first thing is that staff turnover is a reality in childcare. There's probably not anyone that hasn't experienced some type of turnover in childcare. And it doesn't have to be a crisis. It doesn't have to be the major thing that holds you back. So today we're going to really talk about best practices in hiring and how to develop language that delivers these positive results and gets people to stay with you, to retain your staff. So one of the sad facts of childcare is that childcare really does have 2 times the national average of turnover than any other group. And why is that? Well, for me, I think that it really is kind of a snowball effect. So when you have one employee that leaves you, the burden of the extra work on the employees that remain, the low pay, can really cause your staff just to turn over and turn over and turn over. And anyone who's been in a situation that's like that, that it's devastating. But hopefully we'll give you strategies today that will help us get out of this situation. Don't you think, Jared?
Yeah, and for those of you who are looking at this 30% saying that, for those of you that are looking at this 30% and saying, oh, we don't have 30% turnover, it's really hard. One of the challenges in general in childcare is because of the fragmentation of the overall sector, that it's difficult to really extract the kind of statistics that will give us a really good insight. So a lot of times different associations will do different polls and try to come up with national statistics. Luckily, we do know that business as a whole, according to the U.S. Bureau of Statistics, the turnover rate is about 15% per year. So we're going to show you a little bit later how to calculate this, but I'll definitely be interested to know once you guys get that calculation, what your guys' turnover rates are, and if you agree with this as a national average.
So due to the high turnover, we're always in a state of hiring. So we need to understand that what we need to be doing is constantly looking for employees. So therefore, it's crucial that we understand how to hire. So excelling at hiring is universal, but excelling at hiring is not what we are best at doing. Few companies really excel at hiring. So when you are successful at hiring the right employee, everything begins to come together. It enhances your work culture and pays you back 1,000 times over in many ways, but especially in employee morale. Successful hiring is the key to successful businesses. When you make the right hire, the other team members will respond with positivity, and high employee morale will be noticed by everyone. So in 2018, NACE reported that labor ranked as the #1 organizational risk in childcare. And you might think that the pandemic changed that, but as of December 2020, 1/3 of childcare centers were still reporting staff shortages. The fact is that labor shortages impact revenue. If you don't have enough teachers to meet your ratios, your revenue will be impacted.
It's obviously we all know about how crucial staff is, especially when you're working in states that have low ratios, and you have the space to have more children, and you need to maintain that staff. But what I hope to dive a little bit deeper into today is a little bit more of those intangibles about how having successful hiring can be the key to successful business, setting aside a little bit of some of the more particular details like ratios. It's about, and we'll cover this quite a bit, it's about culture. It's about how people, how your hiring reflects your beliefs. And these are all things that we'll go into. But when we say hiring is universal, excelling at it is not. I think that's true of a lot of organizations, big and small. I myself have made numerous hiring mistakes over the years, and I try to learn from them every time. It is a complex process, and I think that you definitely got to give yourself a break and try to just kind of develop some of these programs, and some of which we'll talk about today.
So children aren't your biggest asset at your center. Your staff is. The staff is the one who are with the children. They are forming those relationships. So the time, money, and effort that you put into hiring the right person is worth it, and you will see it in terms of enrollment.
Well, I like to use this picture. It's actually a building that my mother had built. This was one of our centers, and it's people always say, well, I don't have the big built-to-suit building. We have to work with what we have, and I completely agree with that. And I think that having a successful center is not just about one of these different indications. Now, our kind of hypothesis here is that your staff is your biggest asset. That is your foundation to what to what those children are going to be experiencing, and those relationships are what keep your parents coming back. I think we've all experienced what happens when a beloved staff member leaves, and having to talk to parents about that, etc. So really, it is a focus on your asset being your staff.
Yeah, so one of the biggest mistakes centers make is only looking for people when they are desperate and they have to fill a vacancy. So you always need to be on the lookout for great talent, and only searching when you're desperate can often lead to poor hires. One of the biggest mistakes that centers make is doing this. The hiring process often takes longer than anticipate, and not being able to fill the position immediately creates a stressful situation. That pressure and strain that you feel can lead to emotional hiring, where you're more likely to hire somebody on the spot just because you need someone. Even though you know that they are not the right person, you may hire them even just hoping that it would work out. We've all done it. I'm sure we've all done it. And we're probably in the future going to do it. But I really think that us thinking about the process of hiring and creating a process where we are not making mistakes is important.
This is always going to be the biggest trade-off. When you need staff, you need them now, and you can't always have the luxury of going through an extended hiring process. And I think that hopefully we're going to be changing that perception there. But there's always going to be a measure of desperation hiring. However, if when you are not in that period of desperation, you're putting together certain processes, then you're going to be able to even mitigate when you are desperate even better. And one of the things we talk about is covering right here.
So hiring is a constant process, and you should always be actively looking for staff. Whether you're hiring your first employee or your 100th employee, it's really never too late or too early to improve your approach to hiring. We can all improve our hiring techniques, and now is the time to do it. There's a popular Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So that means that if you want success and growth in the future, the best time to act is really now. So the first thing that we need to do is to get out in the community and let them know that you're hiring. So as childcare managers, we're always looking for materials that we can use to create something with. So I can't tell you how many times I've hunted down the only store that has paper grocery bags so that I can make scarecrow hats for Halloween. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'd be interested to see in the chat what kinds of things you guys have made from things that you've found in your community. So hopefully you'll do that. While you're out in the community, talk to people and let them know that you're hiring. Anyone that you talk to could lead to a potential employee. Keep your conversations positive. What do you like best about working at your school? Talk to people about those positive attributes. Know what is working at your school and talk about those things. Positive language yields positive results. Even when you don't have a position, you should be setting aside time for interviewing. So pre-qualifying your applicants and interviewing the most promising candidates. Be honest, but not discouraging about your openings. You don't know the future and what may happen and when you have an opening, but don't make promises that you can't keep. Make sure you take notes and use some kind of rating system for the applicants. So when you look back on them, you can remember the pros and cons. Then place them on a hiring waiting list according to their score. It will help you to decide who to call back for any position that does come up. So, Jared, I think that you have some ideas about.
Yeah, and this is just one of those. This is absolutely one of those areas where people, say it's kind of controversial. Excuse me, controvert. I can never say that word. Controversial. It's a controversy. Thank you. Is it ethical or is it right to be interviewing people when you don't necessarily have an opinion? And I think the key to this is going to be honesty. You know your own turnover rates, and you know how many candidates you should have kind of stacked up at any given point in time. But I think that especially when you're hiring at a time when you're not looking to hire, you're looking at a different kind of candidate. You're looking at a candidate who maybe is already in ECE and looking for possibly more opportunities. Maybe they're going from one school to the other, or maybe they're coming up through certain programs, or have an interest in it and they're not yet in the industry. When we have that desperation hire, it's, just anyone who can start right away. Well, if you're not desperate, you could be looking at someone who may be interested in starting, later, in a few months, or looking to make a change in the summer. So once you change the perception of how your hiring process works, you can be actively looking for people even when you don't have positions open, because you're not looking for the same type of person.
So where do we find quality staff? So a recent study says that 85% of all jobs are filled by networking. And I think that is absolutely true. Don't you, Jared?
I do as well. But here's the thing, and everything that we pull a lot of statistics, and I really like to dive into the research when we do these webinars. But each time that we find something that's interesting from a national level, or interesting, across different industries, we're going to have to boil it down to what does it mean to us. It's kind of an interesting thought process to say, okay, well, yes, I agree with that point, but what does that mean in childcare? Networking is not the same in every industry. You're not really going to probably find teachers on LinkedIn. You might look for, maybe a director there. You may look for, more administrative positions, and you may find teachers there, but it's not going to be the only place. And I think when we talk about networking, we need to understand that networking is more than just what the internet has taught us it is. I mean, networking has existed for quite some time. So when we think about networking in childcare, we're talking about a couple different things.
Yeah, so in childcare, really, hiring is a team effort. Really, what you want to do is adopt a school philosophy that establishes the needs to always be looking for quality staff. So if you can take anything away from this webinar, I hope that you embrace this, to really understand that you need to constantly be looking for employees. Everyone in your school needs to understand this, that there is a need for quality teachers. This includes the teachers, it includes the parents. So help teachers to understand that this is not a threat to their job. A lot of times that's what they feel. In fact, really, it's a way for us to gain more staff, more team members, and it really is a quality indicator. So be honest with your parents about the challenges of finding quality staff. Get them involved with recruitment. They may have a friend or a relative that loves children and is looking for a job. In the past, I think that childcare has really hesitated to put their hiring needs out in front of the parents. However, parents have a vested interest in your staff and really your success. So creating opportunities by letting your parents know you are looking for quality staff to join your team is important. In my opinion, we are asking our parents for donations of cereal boxes and other things that enhance our classrooms for the benefit of the children. So why wouldn't we work with parents on bigger issues of recruiting teachers for the benefit of the children?
You know, when you this was always something that was delicate to handle. You know, I think it has to do with relationships, and you know, when you have relationships with the parents, then it creates a little bit less friction to be talking about, you know, the opportunities that you have within the school. And a lot of times it's about being patient, waiting for that to kind of come up naturally and organically. But I think what we're saying here is that it shouldn't be something that you avoid talking to parents about. It shouldn't be something that you avoid having that discussion and having that part of your relationship. I wouldn't say to go so far as to send an email out to all of your parents and say, hey, we're hiring. But, you know, that depending on how your relationship is with your parents, that may be something you do. One of the things that we have here, getting a little bit of feedback. Sorry.
So, Jared, I think another thing that's, you know, really important is, you know, lots of times when we're having conversations with people, we're talking about what is, what are the job requirements. You have to have 5 years of experience, and oftentimes that that is, you know, not what we're really looking for. We really need to talk about, in order to find people, is what are the benefits of working in childcare? What are the rewards of working in childcare?
Absolutely. And just to go back to this attributes versus requirements thing, I mean, there's plenty of different online threads of all the worst the job ads and postings and stuff like that. And it's something that's definitely an acquired skill. But you want to look at not just the requirements in terms of, you know, this experience, that experience, but really the attributes of the job. What kind of person are you looking for? When we talk about great hires, it's usually when you found someone who connects with the job on a level other than just black and white. And I think that's an area that needs to be focused on more when you guys start to think about how you're going to go about the hiring process.
Yeah, so when you're hiring, you really want to think local. So quality staff really come from other quality staff, and employee referral programs are a great way to find quality staff. Your current staff may know someone that's a great fit for you, so offering a referral bonus can motivate your employees to work hard for you. And we've always done that. Of course, you might want to think about including a monetary bonus. I think that really helps people to work hard to find employees for you. But one of the things that really worked the best for us was joining college job fairs, because we had a lot of teachers that were going to school. We had a lot of directors that were going to school. We had great relationships with local colleges and teachers. And through those community partnerships, we were invited to attend many job fairs. In many cases, we were the only childcare organization that attended those job fairs. So we were a novelty. Other organizations brought brochures and posters explaining why someone should want to work for them. And we brought all of those things too. But we also brought Play-Doh and flubber, things for people to touch and explore. So our table was always filled with people just curious about how do you make flubber and how do you make the scented Play-Doh that we brought. And that just led us to natural conversations about employment. We talked about our personal experiences. We talked about what we liked best about working at our school and how fun it was to work with young children. And as time went on, we developed putting the Play-Doh in small containers, which we had stickers that had our logo and our phone number on it. And I'm telling you, Jared, it really was amazing how many people remember us and called us back just because of that, you know, that little thing. So Social media is also a great place to talk about benefits and how fun and rewarding it is to work with young children. You probably have a lot of pictures, I think, that on your Facebook page of children having fun at your school, but really consider posting pictures of the teachers also having fun, with maybe some quotes of why they love working at your center. This is really going to get other candidates to see what are the benefits of working for you.
Teacher,
So
yeah, teacher profiles are a great way to do things on social media.
yeah, and
Go ahead, Karen.
and so, you know, sometimes for me, the best things that happen just happen by accident. So you know, when I would go out to lunch or something like that, oftentimes I would forget to take off my name tag, and many people would notice where I worked, and that would just lead to a conversation. And it actually led to a teacher that I had working for me for 20 years from that experience. So when you get out in the community, it's really about conversation.
I think that you know, there's been a lot of focus over the last couple of years to focus on these, you know, whatever the latest online tool is for recruitment. Let's see, back in the beginning it was Monster, and nowadays it's Indeed. But you have to remember that a lot of you are not hiring for national companies. I mean, you're hiring for, even if you're a multi-site, for your local community. You want teachers from that local community. And it's not always going to give you the best results if you're exclusively looking online, if you're exclusively looking at some of these, you know, great platforms that promise a lot and tell you all these metrics that they can run to connect you with the right person. Kind of going back to basics and just remembering that being part of the community, that being part of the community in the sense of talking to people, telling them what you do, will get organically, people go, oh, that's interesting. Even people who are bold enough to say, well, are you hiring? And you want to kind of establish yourself as welcoming, and that's going to lead to people looking up to your organization as a place where they want to work. And I think that what Karen said was, you know, the exactly correct. You know, maybe you purposely forget to take off your badge. We enjoyed a good level of name recognition in the community, but I'm sure most of you do too, especially in the areas around your center. And a lot of people don't really understand what childcare means and what it means to work in childcare. So definitely taking some time to have those conversations can be beneficial.
So yeah, it is important that we get out in the community, but at some point we're going to have to advertise. We're going to have to craft a job description and a job posting. And a job description is really a detailed, if not dry, description of the responsibilities and expectations for a job that a company uses internally. It's not what you are posting. A job posting is meant to sell applicants on your company and all the things that make working for you great. So it's similar to the way that you would be selling your prospective parents. The job posting should really be exciting and speak about the applicant's future. So how do we do that? How do we write an effective job posting? Well, one of the first things that you can do is that you need to write a killer job title. It's the most important part about your job posting. You need to grab attention with the headline. And this can be the hardest part really for some people. I've heard directors say that they just can't think of anything creative. And I understand. What I like to do is to think about the rewards that working with young children gets us. So some examples that I've used or kind of thought of are, my day is spent smiling. How about yours? At our company, we smile a lot. Or I get 1,000 hugs a day. You can too when you work for and then put in your company. Another one is every day you can experience the wonder and joy of a child who sees something new for the first time if you work for and then put your company in there. And my last example of this is be a difference maker at your company. We are a community of collaborative, bold, fun, dedicated individuals whose passion is the many children we guide, teach, and protect every day. So, Jared, I know that you're a creative type, so I'm going to ask you for your killer job description when I get done.
Let me jump in here, Karen. One of the things that I think is the best takeaway from this when you're thinking about writing an effective job posting, and I always like to kind of use the analogy of, a movie trailer versus the movie itself. Have you ever watched a movie and you thought to yourself, I'm not sure I would have watched that movie, but the trailer was so excellent, it really made me watch the movie. That's what the mentality you have to do with approaching the job posting. I mean, when we say really sell the position, what you're trying to do is sell the idea that this could be something someone is interested in. You want to give them a reason why they should apply. You want to make sure that you want it to be enthralling. I mean, that's hard to do with a job posting. But there is a lot of facets of working in a childcare that are appealing, that can be exciting. You're making a difference. There are a lot of places that you can go, and sometimes it's just sitting back and wondering why you got into the industry. What are the things about the industry that make you passionate, and starting to write from that approach. Now, obviously, you're going to need to have some of the basic requirements. It can't all just be a story. But I would just stick with the basics. Like, for instance, in our state, it would be, you have to have the ability to get a sheriff's card. You have to, qualify of these bare minimums. You have to be over the age of 18. But not to go deep into some of the other requirements. Maybe you're looking for someone with a certain type of education or a certain type of that. Try opening it up a little more. Try to see what kind of candidates come in if you're not as rigorous with the expectations and more putting that effort into designing a narrative that's going to make someone interesting, especially in these times. I think one of the peripheral causes to everything that's happened in the last year is people are really taking a look at, what they do for a living, where they work. And if we take all of the other stuff out of the equation in terms of, whether or not, the essential status and all of the other things that we, it's just looking about, are you waking up every day and enjoying your day? And I think that, you can present this opportunity in that manner.
Yeah, I think really selling the position is, what we're doing here. Yeah, you mentioned the requirements, and of course the requirements are important. But for me personally, it is about this passion for children, for this lifelong impact that educators have on the children that we teach. And so putting that in our ads is just really important. And so using words that help develop that kind of understanding for the applicants that you're looking for is important. And of course, I would always have somebody make sure that they read the ad after it was written, because and somebody that's outside of your company, not just somebody that's inside your company, but somebody that also is outside, so that they can give you their opinion and really take their response back from that. So one other thing that it was important is, lots of times we have these great killer ads and we put them out and we get people to respond, but then we don't have the openings, and like we talked about before, we let them sit, and so we lose them in that process because we haven't continued that. We haven't done anything with it. So make sure that you really are responding to your emails appropriately.
You want to make sure, and I think this is a great point, Karen, but you want to make sure that you treat these applicants the same way you'd want to be treated. You want to, even if you don't have an opening at that time or something has changed since you made the posting, have your templates ready to go. Be ready to send an email to contact them right away after they inquire about a job, because remember that we're looking for quality hires, and quality hires have certain expectations from the place that they want to work. A quality hire is going to have more opportunities to work places than a less quality hire. So if you're wanting to really up the game in making sure that you hire quality staff, you have to participate in upping that game as well. And it's hard. We're all busy, and sometimes things get to the wayside, but keep that in mind as you craft your responses.
So the interview. So the next part is really about interview, and one thing that needs to be, you need to be careful about in an interview is that the interviewee understands and is probably bringing their enthusiasm. And sometimes in childcare, we really get caught up in that enthusiasm. This person is enthusiastic. And then later we realize, wait a minute, this person has never even worked with children. They don't even have the skills to work with children. So I think that it's important that you have a set procedure that you're using when you are interviewing. So what I've always used is a 3-step interview process. And it really helps to make sure that you're not just caught up in this enthusiasm. So the first thing is a short initial phone call to set up a formal interview. And then the second thing is to have the formal interview. And it can either be a Zoom call or a formal in-person interview, depending where you're at in your COVID procedures. But the second interview should be with somebody else. So somebody that you trust should be able to be part of that second interview. And I think that the 3-step interview process really helps you to be able to see what the candidate is like. So the first phone call that you're making, it should just be about no longer than 15 minutes. And you've probably looked at the resume and you're just calling them back to set up a formal interview. So it's really just a quick conversation. You're just getting the details about the employee. You're asking questions about why they're interested in the position, what made them apply. But the important point here is for us to really be able to reflect on the positive and the negatives, and doing that in a formal way. So you have some system that you're using. I used a 1 through 5 system, 1 being that they were not qualified, 5 being that they were the best qualified. And whatever system you're using really is fine. But you need to have a system that you're using so that you can rate your candidates in an unbiased way. And then doing the formal interview. So that's really a time where you're going to learn about the candidates. One thing that I did was develop a standard list of questions. So everyone that I interviewed had the same list of questions. And what that really did for me was, over time, I was really able to establish patterns of who was a good fit, who was the person that I wanted to hire based on what they were saying. And by asking the same questions all the time, I was able to find and weed out maybe some people that I didn't want to hire. But when you're asking questions, you need to be careful, because you want to make sure that you're asking specific questions that get the candidates to think on their feet. So everybody's always had life situations that have happened, and those are the kinds of questions that you really need to ask in the interview. So, I would ask questions like, what would you do if 2 children in the classroom started punching each other? So, and really listen to the candidate's response, because that can tell you a lot about what the candidate is about. And then I always set a time to sell the candidate really on the school or the organization, and things like that. What I would do is I would walk them around the school, and we would look in the observation windows, and I'd ask the candidate what they thought about the school. And then I'd listen. I'd listen to what they said. I'd listen for their shared goals. Are we on the same page here? Is the candidate and myself on the same page? And when then when we got back to the office, I would always see if they had any questions for me. And that was always interesting too, because it gave me another set of things to think about on what the applicant was thinking, and are they a good fit for me? Are they going to match the other members that are in this team? But one of the best things that I adopted was really doing a secondary interview. And because sometimes, like we talked about before, that as the director, you are trying so hard to put the team together. And so why not bring the team in on the answer to that question and let them be in the interview? So having a second interviewer with you on the employees or the interviewee's second interview is really important, because they're just going to lend some thought to maybe some things that you've missed. Maybe they find that this person isn't a great fit for you. And it just really helps you to determine who you want to hire.
And just one note that I want to make here about using a system. There are so many. I'm a data guy, obviously. I'm in software, so there are so many benefits to being able to look back on successful hires and see how they rated, and also the uniformity of your process, asking the same questions. Well, of course, leaving room to kind of dive deeper in something interesting that someone says. Just having a script and asking the same questions is not going to limit you from having a normal conversation with someone and learning more about them. But what it does do is give you a framework and a structure to allow you to say, hey, based on the last year, 5, 10, 20, 30, however long you've been doing it, once you get the structure in place, allows you to just foresee the things that may have been red flags that you wouldn't have normally thought was red flag, or the opposite, great indicators that this person is going to be successful in your organization. And I absolutely agree with the secondary interviewer part, because we all have biases. We all have biases, not in a bad way, but we tend to listen for certain things. We have biases about the way we speak, in terms of we're always presenting something the same way. You get into a pattern, and having a secondary interviewer really allows you to break that pattern and make sure that you both have these separate scorecards and those scorecards match. Another thing that I wanted to say about Zoom is, one of the things that Zoom or any kind of digital platform has done for us, that now that we all have gotten used to using it, is it expands availability. You may have a great candidate who just can't get in to see you because they're busy and there's certain things going on. Maybe they live a little bit further away, but they really are interested in that job. When you're having this 3-step process, if you leverage some of those tools, the phone, Zoom, so you can see their facial expressions, that may allow you to cover more ground. And you may want to, do a Zoom and then and then an in-person, depending on how much time you have. But definitely use all the tools that you have. Karen, just to note, we've got we'll move a little bit quicker here, because there have been some great questions, and I want to make sure we have time for them at the end. So it's a lot of information, guys. You should have seen us trying to whittle this down to the allotted time. But I'm loving what's going on in the chat, and I'm really excited to be talking about this.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that I really like to bring the teacher around the school. So one thing that I did, and again, it depends on what happens with your with your COVID restrictions. But one thing that I did was I told the applicant that, hey, you know what, you're going to have a time in the classroom, you're going to need to bring a book, or you're going to need to be able to do a small group time with the children. And then I was really able to see, two things. One, if they followed the directions that I gave them and they did that. And the second was really to to see how they were in the classroom, because some people are like, oh yeah, I love being in the classroom, and then never are able to actually be in the classroom. So, what we need to do is, Jared, can you talk just a little bit here?
Absolutely. I can always talk. That's my specialty. Now, training is not just about how to do the job. It's about how to embrace culture. Listen, one of the things that's the most important piece of this whole ecosystem that we're trying to build is, what is our culture, and how do we ingrain that into people as soon as they come into our organization? You always see across all industries this it's a hot buzzword, culture, and how the culture really affects how successful a company is. And while I believe in that 100%, I think that it's not manufactured culture. There's not individual things that actually do manufacture that. I think that you have to take a step back and decide, what is your culture? It's not just a word that you can throw around and everyone automatically understands that. It's your approach to things like curriculum. It's your approach to how you present the building, how you present what's important to you as all throughout your organization, whether you're a teacher, director, or the owner. So when you start to understand what that culture is within your school, you can start to see, well, how do we welcome people into that culture? How do we improve our culture? How do we make sure that people want to stay? These are just excellent ways of viewing your staffing, and may not be the ways that you have been viewing it previously.
Yeah. So, a sad statistic is that 20% of new hires leave in the first 45 days due to the feelings that they don't belong. And that really is just a sad statistic. And it's one thing that hopefully this webinar will help us to improve. And we can get people to really stay with us for longer, because it's just devastating when that happens. So one of the things that we really need to do is on the first day of the employee, that's really the day that's the most important. And it's the day that you need to be prepared. Nobody wants to come to a place and they're not welcomed. So what we would do is, our first day really consisted a lot of filling out paperwork and things like that. And if you have to do that, that's really fine. But one thing that I did was make sure that the employee wasn't isolated, that I didn't stick the employee in a room by themselves where they were just filling out paperwork and had no interaction with what was happening in the school at all. I let them stay in the director's office or into the main office area, so that they could see how the school really interacted. And I think that was important to start out on their first day. The other thing is that as soon as I was able, they get their paperwork done, got them out into the classroom. Even at times we had to break that up into, if it took them too long to fill out their paperwork, we had to break that up into certain time frames, so that the person wasn't sitting there just filling out paperwork and they weren't involved in what was happening in the center. So taking them out, introducing them, and really this is the time to make those strong connections with people. So this is the time that you really want to take them around and have kind of a predetermined thing of what you're going to say about that employee, something that you've learned during the interview process or talking to them. But also when you're introducing them, have something that you're talking, that you have something to say about the teachers that you are introducing her to. So, you want to have that predetermined thing. Another thing that was really successful for us was just having some kind of welcoming gift. So just you want to have a gift. Maybe it's a bag. Maybe it just has a water bottle, a name tag, and maybe you've just included the lunch spots that are close to the center. So one thing that we did was give that employee that list so that she knew that where she could go to lunch, and it really helped build those strong feelings of that they were part of the team. And that's the most important thing to do on your first day. Don't you agree, Jared?
Yeah, and listen, guys, you got to remember that the majority of, when we talk about a welcome bag and having this nice, bag with your logo on it with little fun things in there, this is something we evolved over 40 years. I mean, it wasn't like this in the beginning, and this is a process, and you're not going to do it all in a day. So we're not saying go out there and start buying a lot of stuff and start giving it to your staff. No, but you have to start creating this environment that's welcoming from the very first day. You have to set the tone of what kind of team they're joining and the fact that they're joining a team in general. If you've ever, gone on holiday and gone to a hotel, and if the hotel just does even the smallest little thing to make you feel welcome, it changes your whole trip. And I know that's a kind of a strange example, but think about how you feel. It might be something that you guys can connect with. That, oh yeah, just that little thing. Oh, here's some great restaurants in the area that aren't in the hotel. Just sometimes the littlest thing really changes the tone, and it will have broad effect about how they view joining this team. Plus, remember, if you're doing something like this, they may not have ever experienced this before. They may go, wow, I mean, really, this is different coming into this organization.
So one thing that we really want to do is to look for the skills of the employee, the new hire. What are they good at? And you're going to get that through conversation. You're really going to get that through what excites them. And then what you want to do is to really use those things to incorporate them into your center. So if they're good at art, they're the ones who can start to do bulletin boards for you. And what that really gets for that person is a feeling of, I am part of this team, and you can embrace them.
Yeah, I think this goes to, and we're going to start to get into a little bit about, things that make people stay and enjoy their job that aren't pay or benefits related. If you are keeping an eye out for what someone's passions are, and you're giving them an area within their job to be able to explore some of those passions, that's when that job starts to get sticky. That's when, they may have an offer that's a few dollars more, but hey, they really like the culture and everything that they're in and what they're able to do. And I think that you just mentioned it, if they like arts and crafts, have them do the bulletin board. If,
Right.
If they have a particular skill set that maybe they could, involve that into a circle time activity. You want to make sure that not only are you getting to know the people that are on your staff, but also letting them have a little bit of space to create an environment for themselves where they're looking forward to going to work, where they feel fulfilled in one way or another. And this next section coming up is going to concentrate on that. But sometimes it's not what you realize. Sometimes you may already think, oh, I know that so-and-so really likes this. Hey, maybe we should have her start covering this. Don't be afraid to empower people based on their passions, because that's really when you get the best work product.
Yeah. So one thing that we really did was develop training captains. And, Jared, you and I have talked about this at our last webinar about safety. But, one way to really do that is develop a person who has skill in that area. So one thing that we had was a diaper expert, and that person would train the other staff on the proper diapering procedures, because you never know when that may be you may be called on to change a diaper. And so for us, when we opened in the morning, our pre-K teacher was actually in the toddler room, and so she did have to change diapers. And so having these training experts or these training captains really helped the employees know who to go to. If I have a question on how to do that, who am I going to go to? The other thing that we did was really cross-train people. So it wasn't just that the 4-year-old teachers were dealing with the 4-year-olds, but we really trained people to understand the 4-year-old teacher, that what is the 2-year-old teacher's job, and how is that different from her job, or how is that the same as her job, and then what can we do really to to make that the best experience for everyone. And it really helped us retain employees by doing this.
I think that first of all, cross training is absolutely essential for having kind of a cohesive team that's able to pick up from where each other leaves off. Also, it creates a lot less stress when people go on vacation and stuff like that. But you want to be able, you don't want to get people into this monotonous day in and day out. And obviously working with children is almost never monotonous, but you want them to feel like that they're learning new skills. And I know that we've seen some stuff come in through the chat that talks a lot about, of course, look, childcare is a lower paid, especially the entry-level positions of childcare. It is something that our industry has always dealt with. We have certain caps on what we can charge, and the ecosystem of the economics of childcare, it's very delicate. And well, we can't really increase teacher pay because we're going to have to pass that on to the parents. And I'm sure there's a whole webinar there. But really, what you've got to do is create room for growth within the position itself. If we're talking teachers or assistant directors or office assistants, when you take a look at all of the different areas of that job, where are areas that you can empower? We spoke a couple weeks ago on a webinar about having a safety coordinator. We were talking a lot about safety and how that safety coordinator job comes with responsibility, but it's a job that we had teachers doing. This training captain is another one of them. Assigning mentors to new staff. Create opportunities where someone can go home and say, I made a difference today, not just in the lives of the children that I take care of, but in the lives of my coworkers, and get them to buy into the business itself. Make sure that they understand that they're part of the success of the business. And that is going to, again, create more stickiness in these positions, create more opportunity for someone to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to leave. I am fulfilled from this, because, time after time after time, we see statistics come out and say it's not about pay. Yet what you guys are hearing is it's all about pay. So this is exactly what we're discussing here. We're discussing what falls in between those. What are the different steps from in a teacher's position? What are the different ways that we can empower them?
So employee retention begins on day one, continues throughout their entire career at your center. And, again, just some things to think about is that it does cost 30% of an employee's salary to replace them. And that sometimes, especially for childcare, that having a conversation that's really about the employee and really having that deep care for the other person really can prevent that kind of that turnover. When you really care about somebody and have a conversation with them about it, and they're upset. Maybe they're upset about something that didn't even happen at school, or maybe something that did happen at school. But really having a conversation and getting to know that person and really hearing what they're saying can go a long way in childcare.
For those of you looking at this 30% number, it could even be low. I'm telling you, replacement rates are very expensive, and they're time consuming, and the training that you have to go to. And another thing to keep in mind, folks, this conversation, this idea of 75% of turnover can be prevented by having a conversation. That's not one way. If you're a teacher and you want to be more fulfilled in your job, and you want to introduce, maybe some new ideas. Well, I mean, if I'm talking to you right now, you're obviously thinking about new ideas already. So one of the things that you always have to remember is conversations go both ways. It's not only up to the manager to be saying, hey, is everything okay? Maybe we should talk about this. How can I help you have a better time at your job? But also, if you're not, if you have a manager, that should be a conversation that you feel comfortable having as well. And I think that, as an employer, I can say that I've had staff come to me. I've had staff come to me and say that something that I've done has put them off, and you hope, either yourselves, if you're in the manager position, or if you're not, and you have a manager who's willing to entertain those conversations. But I've learned a lot from conversations like that, and I can definitely tell you that a lot of times it's about, hey, I'm feeling like I'm doing the same thing every day, and I don't like that. And then that gives me a big opportunity as a manager to go, that's fantastic. Thank you for telling me that. What can we do? What can we do to discover your passions to make our business better? Because in my opinion, if someone's coming to you and having that conversation, they're giving you the opportunity. They're giving you the opportunity to avoid that not only just the cost of replacing them, but the damage to the team as well.
Yeah, so one thing that we really did was is you want your informal conversations, but you also really need to establish your regular procedures that you're using. So what we did was we had a 6-month evaluation process that the employee filled out the evaluation on themselves. And again, it was rated one through 5. At one point, we went 1 to 4. But what that did was give the employee the opportunity. They always knew what they were going to be rated on, and it was established. And so they would fill that out on themselves. Now, sometimes it would match, that there was no problem when we went to the evaluation. Sometimes it didn't match. Sometimes what I thought or what somebody else thought versus the employee didn't match at all. So, but the process is that you want to have a 6-month self-evaluation where the employee fills it out. And then at a year, the manager or the supervisor is really going to fill that out and have conversations really at the 6-month period, at the year period. We gave our raises only at the year. And so by having this established pattern, it really helped with, people just coming to us and saying, I need a raise at this point. And what we were able to do was to turn them back and say, remember, we have this policy. And we just had your 6-month evaluation, and then we're going to have your year evaluation. And they knew what to expect. It was established for them, and so it circumvented a lot of issues that can come up if you don't have a regular evaluation process.
It also helps you plan your costs. If you're an owner, or if you're a director that manages the finances, when everyone's 1-year anniversary is, when that conversation is going to happen. However, psychologically, people don't like to wait once a year to talk about how they're doing in their job. And that's really where that 6-month self-evaluation comes in. Also, one of the greatest things about a self-evaluation is, when they get to the 1 year and they take a look at it and you go, oh, well, let's compare where we're at now and where we're at our 6-month. Do you really feel that this is how you're performing here? Do you really feel as though we haven't had any issues in this area? And when you give someone the opportunity to self-actualize, when you give someone the opportunity to really take a look at themselves, you would be shocked at how honest they can be, especially when they're looking at progressing. One of the greatest things about having this, this kind of data, having this tangible, is if you look at it as a cycle. If someone says, well, here's the things I'm struggling with at 6 months, and at a year, maybe those progress. Well, by the time we arrive at the next 6-month evaluation, they may feel that they have progressed in that. And then on the following evaluation with their manager, you can have both of those evaluations that they self-assess, and you can show, look at how much progress we've made. Look at how you didn't feel comfortable at this before, and now you feel that you're doing it very well. And again, we're going back to different things that help people keep in positions, help people stay retained in your organization. You have to sometimes show them that they're progressing. They don't realize that they're progressing. Things happen, over time, you can sometimes look back and say, hey, I really didn't know how to do that. Now I can do it with my eyes closed. But having it on paper in front of them is absolutely excellent. Now, if you guys look at the file section here, we wanted to give you a little bit of a head start. So Karen, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the self-evaluation you put forward and what they'll be able to access there if they click download on files.
Yeah, so I used a little bit different of approach on this self-evaluation because in IKS Academy, we're really talking about the SCOPE approach, which is safe, clean, organized, professional, and educational. So the evaluation that is in this is based on that SCOPE approach. So it just has a couple things about how the teachers really are providing a safe environment, how they're providing a clean environment, how they're providing an organized environment, how they're providing a professional environment, and then educational environment. So I hope that you'll look at that and maybe get some ideas about the evaluation process really from there. So let's talk about reasons why employees stay with you. So the most important thing is that you want to have good relationships. You want employees to develop good relationships between themselves. So, nobody likes to go to work where they can't get along with the person that they're working with, because especially in childcare, you've really got to count on the person that you're working with. Have they taken care of, everybody feels, have they taken care of my child the way that I would want them to take care of before they got to work? And so developing those relationships is just extremely important. You also want to make sure that it's a pleasant work environment. Nobody wants to go into a place it's hostile, or people are constantly saying things about you and things like that. So is it a pleasant work environment? And then what relationship do you have with your direct supervisor? Is that a pleasant relationship? Because it's the relationships that really make that the difference. It's why employees stay.
And again, remember, when we're talking about pleasant work environment, we're talking about all those factors that make people feel empowered, that make them feel like they're growing in their position. It's not just about that the building smells nice. It's really about whether or not they come to work feeling like this is a safe place, that this is a place where they can have their opinions heard, as well as that they can get their job done, and the tools for that is provided for them. So absolutely, these are big things to look out for as you look at both your own organization and how you feel within that organization.
So childcare employees are looking for an environment that they feel accepted, where their thoughts, ideas, and actions through caregiving directly benefit the children that they're working with. And again, it's about how you feel. It's about being accepted and feeling positive at your workplace.
And these are things that you can either analyze your own work environment, analyzing the environment that you're presenting to them, but also just making sure that, look, we're going to look out to make sure that we have an environment where people are going to want to stay. This is what retention's about.
So, why do people leave? So they can leave because there's no opportunity for growth, that they feel like they can't move forward. And, that's an important thing. I know that we've had some questions really about pay and benefits, because it really is the first thing that you think about. Why does somebody leave? They leave because of the pay and benefits, but it isn't, that isn't the number one reason. Again, it's if you create an atmosphere where somebody feels comfortable in your environment and they can work within your environment. I've had many employees who have really, let's not call it sacrifice, but maybe they didn't make as much money as somebody else, but they stayed because it was a great place to work. They believed in what we were doing.
When you really get into things, and this is something to keep in mind, when someone leaves a job because of pay, specifically pay and benefits, here's usually what the reasons are. They'll say, I can't afford to live. I am not making enough money to pay my bills and to live in a way that doesn't stress me out. Now, without, again, going into the economics of things, let's assume that whatever you guys are being paid and whatever this situation is in your local communities, that's not the case. When it comes to benefits, again, I need health insurance. I'm not being able to be offered health insurance. I can't afford it. I need to leave this job because of that. That's why that number is so low. That number is so low, 9% of why employees leave because of pay and benefits, because those are the reasons why someone leaves their job. I cannot afford to live. I'm not in a career path that's going to make me all the money that I want to have, is not as often as you think the reason why they leave. Now, if you take away everything else and they're just getting paid a lower wage and they don't feel that they have any opportunity for growth, and they don't have a good work-life balance because they're working 18 hours a day, which I'm sure that isn't happening in your centers, and they don't feel fulfilled whatsoever by their job, which, as a job with kids, you would think that it would have to be a bad situation not to feel fulfilled at all. That's when all they have left is, I'm just not getting paid enough to put up with this. That's when they leave because of pay. So there's this idea that we have to focus on pay, and I'm going to go ahead and go straight into the next slide, Karen. It's not important. And when we say that, people go, oh my gosh, of course it's important. We're not saying that. We're saying is if we meet those standards, that they're paid enough to live, they're paid enough, they have benefits enough that are crucial to existing, what else can we talk about of a job? And I'm going to go through this, and then Karen, I'd love for you to comment, because definitely these are things that you and I have talked about a lot. But look, if pay is not important, then what is? What are we talking about with growth here? How are we talking about how to create growth? And we're not talking about just moving from one position to the other. There's not a lot of it's what's called a horizontal organogram in childcare. There's very few positions in terms of title, but that doesn't mean that there's very few jobs in the childcare center. There's quite a lot. So, maybe you have an organization that starts with assistant teacher instead of just coming in with teacher. And then there's that career path between assistant teacher to mentor, things like safety coordinator, which again is a reference to another webinar we did, training captain. Maybe you're the bulletin board person. You're the one that teaches everyone how to change diapers. Earning added responsibilities is growth, is promotion. It's a show that you can be trusted. These are things that are growth and that are important and beyond just pay. You want to give someone the reward that they're progressing in their skills, not just in what their job is. So, there's so many different programs that you can offer, whether it's an opportunity to study through companies sponsored scholarships, or even improving their understanding of early education by having mentors teach different pieces of it. Karen, we had a robust internal teaching program because we realized that this is what our employees were looking for.
Right. And I think that this is really about, two things. One is that, we need to step back a second and realize that the path to success, we need to inform our teachers that the path to success does not have to go teacher director. It doesn't have to go from teaching to directing. And really, we don't want teachers to do that. We need people that are going to be in the classrooms and work with the children. So offering these kinds of programs where you can move from assistant teacher to teacher, and then into a mentor teacher, that really helps people see that this is their ongoing career path. But like you mentioned, Jared, we really had a lot of programs that were about education and gaining education. So in some states, you might have a teach program where your teachers can be part of that. We were a part of that in our center. We also had CDA programs where teachers could get their credential through the CDA program. And this was really an opportunity for them to see that teaching is an important thing, and that they can do that. And they can do that for, I've had teachers who worked for me for 20 years, longer. So they can do that for a long period of time. So let's, the manager has a huge impact on what's happening at the school, and nobody wants to work for a bad boss. So how can we be better bosses? I think that that's really the key. The key here is that we just need to be to look at how can I improve the skills that I have working with the employees that I have, and how can I be a better boss? So one thing is really to communicate and to listen. Listening is hugely important, because sometimes as managers we get in a place where we're telling people what to do, and we're telling them, that they need to do this, but listening to their thoughts, because they're the ones who are in the classroom, and they often have way better ideas than I have about how to solve a situation. We talked about opportunities for growth, especially with an employee who is, not your best employee. How do you get them from that level to an acceptable level? You really want to look at focusing on positives. Sometimes when you're forced with that situation, you're looking at the negative. This person doesn't do this person doesn't do that. And what you really want to do is you want to look at, well, what do they do well? What is the positive that they do well? And how can I emphasize that? How can I get them following that theory? How can I get them to the place that I need them to be? And, last is really working together. When you want your team to be cohesive, and you want your team to be where they can see what is happening at your school. So sharing those kinds of things with your team, sharing the turnover that you have in your school with your team is a good thing. They will help you to find solutions for that. And so I just think that being a better boss is something that we're always aspiring to do. We're always looking to be a better boss.
One of the things, look, I've got a lot of hard opinions on management. I can tell you that. We won't go into it because I could talk for hours. But you have to approach management in the right way. I have been fortunate in my life that every time I was in a position to be a manager, I never really had to worry about anyone taking that position away from me. So I always viewed good management as, how can I help the people who I'm working with be the best version of their professional selves? How can I help them, how can I understand what their goals in life are, and how can I help them accomplish that from a professional standpoint? And to take the fact that, I'm not threatened by someone excelling, because that excellence is reflection on me more than just a reflection that, they're an up and coming person. And I view management as a coordination to see, where can I move these pieces around, who's best fit for where, to make the overall mission successful. And I do think that it's important that you approach it in that way, and more importantly, that you share the goals and metrics that you're trying to accomplish. And there's a limit to this. Not everyone needs to know every facet that and they need to focus on what they need to focus on. But, if you have macro goals and you share those with people, they want to know if you've hit that goal. Let's say, hey, at the beginning of the month, we're trying to get enrollment up 10% this month. You share that. You don't know how much of an impact that could have. That person might go out into the community and feel so invested in the company that they're telling people, hey, are you in childcare? You should come to my childcare. This is where I work. You should come enroll. You never know the impact that your team can have if you all work as a team. And I think that it's important that you begin to view those goals in that manner. I mean, really something that I'm passionate about. If you give people the room to excel, if you give everyone the chance to show that they can flourish, I think it changes organizations.
I do too. So really, if you consistently apply these principles, you'll build trust, increase morale, you'll enhance productivity, you'll foster loyalty, and you'll retain staff, which is what this is about. One thing that I do want to talk a little bit about is I believe that anything that is achieved is measured. And this is a business practice by that was developed by Peter Drucker, who is who is said to be the inventor of business management. And so one thing that you want to do is to really know your teacher retention statistics, not just guess at it, but really know what is your turnover rate. And so you can do that either monthly, you can do that quarterly, you can do that every 6 months, but at the very least, you want to do that yearly. You want to know what is your yearly teacher turnover rate so that you can improve it. And that's the point. If you're going to measure it, you're going to be able to achieve it. And I know, Jared, you have something to say about this. So go ahead.
No, absolutely. I'm just also watching the time. I know that it's important for your guys' schedules that we stay on time here. So, Karen, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a little bit more control in pushing us through these last few slides.
That'd be great.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, look, this is something that if you have the ability, if you're in a position where you can measure this, please be measuring it, because it's also an indication of your own success. You want to get those metrics down. You want to get below 15%. If there has to be a line in the sand, let's call it 15%, because that's what the Bureau of Statistics tells us. Obviously, there's so many mitigating factors to this, but when you start to get some of that high retention rates, you'll start to see the stickiness of some of these programs that you're putting in having effect. And really what you're doing is you're benefiting not only your business, but you're benefiting the kids as well. The stability of having the same teacher all the way through your preschool, the same teachers through their preschool ages is absolutely something that parents are looking for when they're looking at where to enroll. This is, if you don't mind here, Karen, I'll present this one, and I want to throw it back to you because this is something that had an effect on me. We had an annual holiday party every year. And I think from about the age I was 12, my mom started to let me attend, real big on the sparkling apple cider there. So, as we had this event every year, it was to celebrate the success of the company and the success of the people who made that happen. It was always just such the crowning event of the year every time. Now, one of the things that we did, and because we benefited from this long-term longevity that we had and the retention, is that we made an event each year during this party when people would reach these different stages, the 5-year, the 10-year, the 15, and the 20. And I can recall being quite young and someone getting their 15-year pin, for example. And just because when you're young, 15 years seems like it's an eternity, thinking, I don't understand. And I would ask my mom, how does this work? How is it that these people have worked for you so long? And Karen went through all of these processes. How did you feel actually experiencing it? What was the result of some of those successes that we celebrated?
Well, I mean, it really was extremely rewarding just, to be able to be involved for such a long time. And, as time went on, I knew where I was in the hierarchy of that. So, I wasn't the longest employee. I'd worked there 30 years and I wasn't the longest employee. And so, for me to look at the person that was above me and say, ooh, I'm going to get there was important to me. And it became really honestly became a lifelong dream of mine to be able, to do that. So, that's what you want when you're looking at your employees. It's, and it's great. We had a plaque. It's really great to see that because many teachers that also attained a lot of these year after year things had their plaques. They had many plaques posted in their classrooms, and they were very proud of it. They all, when I would go in, they would always show me their plaques. Some of them had a pin that they would wear and what they would be, how many years they'd worked for us. So it was just really a great wonderful thing.
So we're wrapping up here. We're wrapping up here, and we're going to take some of those questions. I know one of the great questions that I want to definitely approach is about what's going on right now with unemployment benefits and how that has an effect. So look, at the end of the day, employee retention involves everyone from the manager to their colleagues to the employee themselves. We are all part of what makes this ecosystem work. It's not, there's no miracle cure, and culture takes time to develop, sometimes years, sometimes decades. I look back at the culture that I saw develop in my family's company, and I can, we can tell even eras on how that evolves. So you want to find what works for you and stay focused. It's going to have lasting effects, and patience is the most difficult thing to do. But if you're trying to build something that lasts, these are the tools and best practices that will help you get there. And there's going to be milestones along the way, and there's going to be benefits in the business, in your own personal fulfillment. All of that is going to come together. I wanted to end on a quote, and the funny thing is I pulled this quote, and I liked the quote, and I couldn't really remember who this person was, and we're from Las Vegas, by the way. But Renee West, Karen, was the first woman to head up one of the major Las Vegas resorts. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I found this, and I thought, oh, this is just going to be the perfect way to sum this up. You can have the best strategy and the best building in the world, but if you don't have the hearts and minds of the people who work with you, none of it comes to life. There is a huge benefit to really empowering the people that are around you, empowering the people who are helping you achieve your goals, sharing those goals, and sharing in the success. And when people work together on a common goal, you will be successful. Because if you're not, you're going to find ways to solve those problems together.